All right, I'm recording, and I'm with the one and only JP Rindfleisch the ninth. Do you make your friends and family call you the ninth?
Yeah, obviously.
Yeah, that's a thing, right?
I'm that pretentious. I
You,
do that. I'm like,
you,
no, I'm the ninth. Excuse me.
that's right. Your partner's like, "Hey, JP, can you bring that thing over here?" And you're like, "Who?"
Who?
Like,
I do need a full
yeah,
name.
JP Rindfleisch the ninth. Can you bring that over here? You're like, "Of
Yeah,
course, I'd be happy to."
that's I'm that pretentious. Yep, that's
Yeah, that's
exactly
you.
it.
That's how we define you. Um,
Do you want to
okay,
hear something funny about that?
yes.
Uh one of the reasons why I like having the ninth is because it's two letters at the beginning and two letters at the end, and it adds
Oh, that is
simplicity.
some nice symmetry. That
Symmetry, that's the word.
symmetry. That is nice. I like that.
There,
Oh,
now you know.
I had never thought of that before. Are there an even number of letters in Rindfleisch? I've never counted it.
I I don't want to think about it, and I'm already am. So let's move to the next question, please.
There's not. It's odd. That ruins everything.
Yeah,
Well, no,
thank
that
you.
because that means there's a
Because
middle
it's
letter.
11.
F is the middle letter, or is L the middle letter? L's
There's
the middle
11,
letter. L's the middle letter.
which
Yeah,
is two digits. So then it's two letters, two digits, two letters. There you
yeah,
go.
and L is in the middle. I'm just gonna
I
keep saying
fixed it.
L is
I
in the
fixed
middle.
it for
You
myself.
fixed it. It's all fine now. Okay, so
Quality podcast content.
this is the first of many of these conversations that I am going to affectionately call building community in the AI apocalypse with JP Rindfleisch the ninth. Um, because we're going to talk about living as authors in the age of AI, maybe? Question mark on the end of that after as I'm feeling today. So before we get into that, a little bit of an icebreaker because we clearly need a warm up. If you were an animal, if you could choose any animal to be a spirit guide, what
What?
would that animal be and why? You
Um,
said I could ask a random icebreaker.
I thought the random icebreaker was the first question.
No.
Uh, so I'm not going to use the term spirit guide,
Okay, fair. Can
but
I probe as to why?
cultural appropriation. But
Oh, my bad.
that's okay. We're
I'm
learning.
sorry. I every day, man, every day. All right. I can't use that other word too because that author's inappropriate. Um, okay, cartoon friend.
Perfect. A sloth.
Oh, why a sloth?
um, I'm sorry. Taking life slow, having an entire
Yeah,
ecosystem that exists within you. Like,
yeah.
why not?
Why not? And I feel like having a sloth around would be very chill all the
Yeah.
time. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
that'd be nice. I do
We
have.
wouldn't get anywhere, but I mean, that's
I
no different than
mean,
now.
yeah, where do you need to go? I work from my basement. It is funny. My family is on Life 360, so like we can all see where we are all the time. And the kids actually started it. I am not spying on my children, and they were like, "Hey, let's all get on Life 360." And they're always like off doing fun and amazing things. Like we're out here, and it's always like, and Dad's still in the basement, because that's where I work from. I have a groundhog. My cartoon animal would be the groundhog that lives in the shed in my backyard. His name's Gary, and
Lovely.
there's a like a door that exits my basement that goes out back that's glass, and he comes up to it all the time and looks in while I'm working. It's very nice.
Lovely.
Yeah,
Lovely.
he also eats the weeds in my backyard, which I really appreciate. We have and then my dog comes to the back window and like barks at it and gets mad, and Gary just like sits there and looks at him, and my dog is very angry that I won't let him outside, but I keep telling him Gary's gonna mess you up. If I let you out there, that groundhog is gonna
All
mess you
right.
up. So
So you're gonna be in the backyard, just consuming weeds, and I'll be up in
yeah,
the trees
that's me.
just
Just being
living the
helpful.
dream.
Me and Gary Backyard being helpful, taking down those weeds. Yeah. Looking in people's windows like a badass. That's what I'm going to be doing. Okay. Real
That's
questions
illegal.
now.
Okay.
You know, man, I'm learning all kinds of things today.
Well, I don't know
Um,
if that's actually illegal. That
all
just seems
kinds of
illegal.
behaviors I have to change. Okay, so now to the real questions about building community in the AI apocalypse. First, we're going to start off by talking about AI. I
Yay.
find that my temperature on AI changes probably hourly, how I feel about it, how I think about it. So, what are your feelings on AI right now?
Eh.
Should we do like a scale on 1 to 10? Let's do a scale on 1 to 10. Or we could do colors, a color that represents your
There's
feelings on
you're
AI.
okay, sloth over here. Too many options. We'll do the one
We
to
could do
ten
the
if you want.
alphabet. We could do shapes. We could do okay, let's do 1 to 10. 10 being AI as it is right now is the most amazing thing. And it's going to change the world forever. And 1 being the nuclear apocalypse is nigh
Oh,
because of AI.
okay. Um,
We're
you're
going
gonna hate
optimist to
me,
pessimistic.
and I'm gonna just say five. And the reason is you're like a shocker. Uh reason is because I see both sides of that spectrum. I mean, you can't ignore the fact that there is a potential for a lot of danger. I mean, when you look outside of the creative space and what AI can do, there are, I mean, like they talked about it today or a couple days ago within the Senate, like there's fear over the coming politics over the next few campaigns and how AI is going to interact with that. Like
Yeah.
we already know how terrible it is and we know how terrible it can be. In the creative space, I still give it a five because I think that we are going to drastically see differences in how we as creatives put our stuff out there and how we as creatives can get eyes on our stuff. I think that we're going to lose a lot and we're going to get different and strange things out of it.
Hmm. I like that. That's a nice temperature gauge.
Yeah, I
Um,
mean, like, you just can't do anything about it.
yeah. Yeah, I do feel that way sometimes. I'm like, I'm very powerless in this. What am I gonna do? Uh,
Mm-hmm.
I can I can yell at the windmills all day long, but they don't stop turning. Um, yeah, I would man, where would I put myself? I'm probably a 5 today too, for different reasons. But I'm a 5 today too. I think I'm very influenced by the people that I'm reading and listening to.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say I'm like a 6 or a 7 because I'm I've been influenced recently by Seth Godin. I've been
Yeah.
influenced by Seth Godin for a long time. I've been reading his stuff for a long time. But he's
Yeah.
very like AI as it is right now is great because it's the end of mediocrity. So
Yep.
his big thing is like AI is going to force us all to create art and work that AI can't create.
Yeah.
Um,
I totally agree.
yeah. On the negative side, I was listening to, I think his name was Gary Mason. I was reading Gary Mason. I can't remember if I was listening or reading an article. He's a cognitive scientist. And he was talking about how, like, the AI we have right now, he was arguing is actually a bunch of smoke and mirrors. And he was like, what what is gonna be scary is general AI. AI that actually understands concepts and can teach itself things. What we
Mm-hmm.
have right now in like Chat GPT is a language model
Yep.
that is working off of probability and giving you like the next most probable phrase based on the phrase that you said. But it's not actually understanding concepts that it can teach itself yet. So it only knows what we hand it, if that makes
Mm-hmm.
sense. So he was like, what we have right now is kind of a nice toy. It's going to suck for certain for any industry that creates with words. This AI tool sucks for them. But in
And
like this AI tool being able to create the nuclear holocaust, no, we're not there yet. That's not
no, no.
a thing. Yeah.
Yeah. I think too with data and data analysis, um, I think that that can be a pretty big hit to a lot of people who work in that field. I think because as someone who has used like VBA macros and I just Google looking for answers for certain things, this is an amazing tool to collaborate with to build those sorts of macros that I wouldn't know how to do otherwise. So I find AI in that realm, and then not really in the writing realm, but in that realm as like a teaching model,
Mm.
helping people who want to be better at something to use a model that they can kind of bounce ideas off of. And I think in the realm of writing, it's the same thing, except what you're talking to is like you have to be aware that it's like 3 steps lower than where your creativity is. So it's
Yeah.
almost like working with an underwriter who you know is not going to give you good stuff, but it's going to give you something to work off of. And that's, I mean, like I co-write with you, I co-write with Abe and other people. Not saying that what you give me is trash.
I thought you were about to compare me to an underwriter that gives you
My
really bad
God, it's
stuff.
terrible. No, but what I'm saying is like I know the
Ouch.
mentality
Ouch.
of working with something else. In this case, it's not a person, but I've played around with it for idea building. Uh, Jeff has just lost it. He's
Took
gone.
myself up off the floor in tears. Yeah.
Garbage. No. Yeah. That's where I'm at.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I told somebody, I can't remember if I said it on this podcast or I told somebody else. I talked to too many people. That I feel like it's my very eager college intern.
Mm-hmm.
That like it's very fast and it's
Mm-hmm.
very um pristine, but it makes a lot of shit up. It
Yeah.
just makes shit up. That's
Yeah. Yeah.
so like, and if it doesn't have
100%.
the answer, just like my eager college interns, if it doesn't have an answer, it's gonna give me an answer.
But it's
Yeah.
going to give you an answer believing that that's the
But
answer.
yeah, fully so confident that that's the answer. Yeah. And like sometimes it's helpful and sometimes it's not. Like I've been using Bing for research
Yeah.
recently. Specifically, like I have a different podcast where we talk about different things. And I do a lot of research for that podcast. Like I do a lot of like, what's the history of this? How did this come to be? Where is this thing from? How does this thing work? And I've found that like Bing is suddenly amazing. I feel like I'm in the 90s again. Like all of a sudden I'm using a different browser than Google. But there are times where I'll ask it a question and it tells me like the sentence I wanted to know. Like the
Mm-hmm.
sentence I had asked it. I'd be like, "Hey,
Mm-hmm.
in 2002 this thing started. Talk to me like what do you know about that?" And it'll be like, in 2002 this thing started. You have
Yeah.
4 questions left because you only get 5 questions. It's like you have 4 questions left. I'm like, no, oh, it's like talking
You
to a
were so
genie.
close.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like talking to a
Yeah.
genie.
Could I have more
Uh,
questions, please? You have 3 questions left. Yeah, it's so like I
I
log
think
into
part
the
of that,
hotel.
I agree that the responses often sometimes aren't the greatest, but I think part of it too is learning how to talk to it.
That's so true.
Um, like with ChatGPT, when I play with that, I the some of the first questions I ask it is, how do I ask a GPT model this question? Like, give me the prompt that would work best for this. And then it makes it for itself. I'm like, okay, great. And then I'll give it that. And then like the responses get a little bit better. Or
No, because it has a brain wipe every time you start a new chat. Do you ask it for the prompt and then start a new chat pretending like you came up with that prompt on your own?
I have a prompt GPT chat that is just solely used to create prompts for other chats.
Nice. I love that. That's awesome.
But I have to remind it what it is several times because it forgets. So I have
Yeah.
to be like, you are a prompt to for other chats. It's like, oh yeah. I'm like, yeah, yeah. It's like it's not like dealing with a college intern. It's like dealing with a very stoned but somewhat intelligent college intern.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a
There
good
you go.
that's a good thing. Um, okay, so we've taken our temperature on it. Neither of us are like this is gonna burn the world down in author world or in normal world. And neither of us are like this is the most amazing thing ever today. If you ask me tomorrow, I might change. What's the most interesting thing you've seen happening with it recently? And I can go first on
I
this one. I
Okay,
because I
good,
made
because
you
I
go
have to
first on the
find one.
last one. Yeah, I was listening to the Pivot podcast this week, which is a podcast about tech. It's a Kara Swisher. If you don't know who Kara Swisher is and you're interested in tech, she's kind of the, foremost reporter, maybe the most famous reporter on tech. And she has multiple podcasts. Pivot, she does with a guy named Scott Galloway. It's excellent. He's a money guy. They bring an interesting perspective on things. It's excellent. And they this week they had an episode about ChatGPT, and they were talking about a lawyer who tried to use he got an app funded that would use the language model AI that we're using now as a lawyer for people in courts. It's like he got a lot of funding super fast to do this. And then he got sued by the State Bar Association because there's a law on the books from the 1800s that says you're not allowed to practice law unless you have a law degree. And they were like, you are bringing in outside counsel in this AI that has not passed the bar exam.
I, you know what that makes me wonder though? Could this is like wild, but I could still see it happening. Could someone program auto GPT, which basically when it sees a problem, it creates basically another prompt to figure out that problem, and it can use the internet and all that. Could an AI take the bar exam, pass it, and then
And declare itself a
offer
lawyer.
legal advice?
Oh,
Well,
I
for a
feel
short range of time, and
yeah.
then have to like reinitiate. Yes, I
Retake
am
the
certified.
bar.
I just took it.
I feel like this is a book. I feel like there's a book, AI lawyer. I feel like this is a book where at the end of every chapter he
AI
retakes
lawyer.
the AI lawyer retakes the bar at the end of every chapter. And the voice of the AI lawyer would absolutely have to be written in Seth Rogen's voice because it is a
Oh, okay.
intelligent yet stoned. Um, you're not going for this. That's fine. What's the most
No, I'm
that's
not, but
I'll
that's
write
not
it
for you.
without you. I don't need you.
Yeah, yeah,
What's
yeah, 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 yeah,
what's the
yeah,
most
yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay.
I already have a half-dead novel in which I'm using Vince Vaughn's voice to write ChatGPT that I've like just stopped writing because I was like, this is absurd. What, all right, what's the most interesting thing you've seen recently?
I cannot find the article for the life of me right now, but I saw an article earlier that was like talking about podcasts that are coming out where the hosts are just AI talking
Oh
to each
no.
other and they're terrible at the moment.
Yeah,
Um but uh I've seen this with a couple of things. Like TikToks that are just AI generated voices and faces and everything.
hmm.
Um and it's interesting. At this moment it's too uncanny. It feels uncomfortable to watch because it's not quite human, so you're just like, oh, what is this? um
Yeah, your brain, it's
but
that
yeah,
uncanny valley where your brain is like, I
yeah,
don't know why I don't like it, but I don't like it.
yeah. And
Yeah,
I think in the past couple of days too, this is like 100 things all at once and you can deal with that.
yeah,
um
that's what you're here for.
but I had heard that Google had implemented something where they'll take your voice and translate it into 10 languages instantly, and they can use like your pitch and kind of like the way that you enunciate and use words and swap it into those other languages. And basically you then have content for multilingual madness.
Interesting.
uh
Wow.
I think I heard one of these, but I can't confirm it. uh and it was again a little weird. It was
Okay.
just
Well,
not
where
there
did you
yet.
hear it?
uh I was watching Twitch, and
Okay,
someone was playing a video on Twitch, and so
interesting.
it was just too strange. It didn't feel like it was a human voice, but it didn't feel like it was one of those computer voices. It
Yeah.
was like something very in between.
Yeah, your brain's
Um,
like picking up on like something subconsciously that you can't quite consciously
yeah,
register.
and it
Where you're
was
like,
funny because
this
everyone
is
in chat was
off.
like, "This is not right," but we don't know what it is.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't, and I know that like some people, probably rightfully so, get scared about that, about like, I can't
Hmm.
believe this is happening in the world. But I'm always like, hey, just follow the money. If there's not money in it, it's not going to happen.
Yeah. I
So
mean,
I'm not worried about anybody stealing my voice because I'm not making enough money to make my voice profitable. So
I think too, like it's just gonna flood markets,
yeah,
which will lead into our next few questions of what to do about that. Because I mean, I also more news because so many of it has come out, and this is our first time talking about this. But not only the one author that plans to do 10,000 books next year, but there's a sci-fi author who
did he say
just
next year
published.
or did he say total? That's Michael Anderle,
I think it
right?
was next year. Michael Andrew. Yeah, I
Was it
just wanted.
next year? I don't know.
I thought
I
so. Um, but
I
there was
know
a
he said
sci-fi.
10,000 books. Yeah.
Yeah, there was a sci-fi author who released 99 short stories on Amazon in a month. Um,
No way.
yeah, and
I
so
wonder, do you
people are
know if he
already
made any
doing it.
money?
You know, I didn't look, and I'm not going to look right now.
I'm just so fascinated because here's the thing is that like that's not how Amazon works,
Hmm.
right? Like just it is a void, and just putting things on it does not equal money. Trust me, I know. So like I knew that before AI. I've been putting things on Amazon for years and not making any money. So so like, it's interesting to me to be like, hey, can you just throw up 99 short stories and make money on them?
One, I was incredibly incorrect on one thing, two things. 97 books, so wrong.
That's not incredibly incorrect.
But 9 months,
If
not 1 month.
if it says, oh, in 9 months,
Yeah,
ah,
still.
I feel like I could do that without AI.
Yeah, because each of these are between 2,000 and 5,000 words.
Oh, yeah,
Um,
dude. Yeah, you don't need AI for that. I
no,
wrote my first year is like writing fiction. I wrote a short story almost every night. I ended the year with like 200 short stories. And
yeah.
Amazon should thank their lucky stars I did not put those up. They wouldn't care. They'd just be buried in obscurity. Yeah, I did what we all did back then. I started a blog. Um, yeah, that's another story for another time. So, that's really interesting. Can you tell if he made any money on his 97 stories?
Again, you're asking me to do these
I'm
searches
sorry,
live.
don't do it now.
How dare
That
you?
my bad.
Um, but I mean, even to that point, like you had just said, 99 in 9 months, that's not as much as, some people can produce. And I think that it's kind of the ability to use AI is not necessarily speeding up authors in that sense, if that makes sense.
Mm,
Uh, if he's only if it were one massive book that he was launching like every couple of weeks or something like that, that might be different. But 2,000 to 5,000 words, that's not like we've
yeah.
got some authors in there. So he's kind of like parring with some of those authors that do high output.
Yeah, I was wondering when I heard Michael Andrews' 10,000 book number, part of me was like, if you were willing to spend the money, you
Mm-hmm.
could probably do that without AI.
Yeah.
It's just you have way less overhead as a
I mean,
publisher.
isn't he planning on working with humans who are going to be editing those pieces?
He is.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, it's a
But you're
business.
just you're just cutting your overhead. Like you're just cutting
Yeah.
down on what you'd have instead of paying five writers, you can pay one. because
Yeah.
you have the high college intern who's the high yet intelligent college intern who's cranking out things for you at a rapid pace. Um, Super interesting. Okay, what's one thing you're doing with AI for your writing?
I just took a drink of water and almost choked. Um,
It's my favorite time to ask people questions.
Perfect. For my writing, uh, so I'm working on story hypothesis, which is like my little formula for um how story functions, how we can break apart story, and how we can use theme intermixed with wants and needs to really drive a narrative throughout the whole piece. I have a formula, and funny enough, formulas work great for high college students. Uh, um, so I have this like template, and I can ask AI, hey, this book that I haven't read, but
Mhm.
my client has read, can you analyze that for me? And can you kind of, break it down into pieces of story hypothesis? And it just helps in that faster communication.
Nice.
Um, I've mostly been using it on books that I have read, but I have tried it on a couple that I haven't, and then I'll like either read it afterwards or whatever, and it's okay. It's not great, but it
Yeah.
is becoming better as we continue. And I mean, like I have the version that can access the internet, dun dun dun. So I can get sources where it's pulling this information from
Mhm.
to verify, because one time I did it and it gave me extremely incorrect information. And I was like, this is not the story I asked you, and you just made this up with volition. Uh, but
That's awesome.
it's been really helpful in that sense to kind of use a formula that I created, and then pull in other information so that I can get this like faster communication between people I work with.
That's interesting. Yeah, I like that a lot. I'm excited about the story hypothesis, by the way. So it's coming out in August.
Yes,
Yes.
that's the
Um,
plan.
I'm very excited about that. Yeah, it's going to be a great book, and everybody needs to go buy it. I'm using AI right this week. I used it mostly as a brainstorming machine.
Mm-hmm.
That's where I used to get. I'm currently editing the first dialogue doctor book. It comes out potentially in like 2 weeks, depending on how fast I finish my edits. Um, but I get I used to do this thing where like, oh, I've used this word too many times on this page. I need a new word. And so I'd like open like I'd type into Google like synonym for blah blah blah, and I'd like
Mm-hmm.
do thesaurus work with Google and be like, okay, this word, that word. It's a lot faster to have open AI open chat open AI open and just be like chat GPT 4 open and just be like, hey, I need 15 words for this.
Yep.
It just spits them out. I'm like, okay,
Yep.
great. Or I'll even do it with metaphors. It'll be like, this is the metaphor I'm currently using, and I don't like it. Give me other metaphors. And it'll just like, shoot me a bunch of metaphors. It's great for brainstorming that way. I'd find it's like you're saying, like, if I ask for 20 metaphors, like four of them are really good.
Yeah.
Like
And
16
then
of
if
them are
you
like,
mash them together,
yeah. And usually I don't take the exact one that it does. I'm like, oh, I like this is a great idea. I'm going to shift that
yeah.
to my language. But yeah, so I've been using it that way. Um, I'm trying to think if I've been doing anything fun with it this week.
Can
Yeah.
I can I mention I'll mention a couple things that
Okay.
intermix so that I don't ruin any surprises on stuff we're working on. But you're like, what are you talking about?
I'm started.
Um
He's like, I have a co-writer and I've completely replaced him. He was only giving me average. He was a crappy underwriter anyway.
no, one thing I find fun is making one of the chats have the voice of a character that you want to create. Um, and so telling them like, hey, you are Regina George from Mean Girls, and you're really mean. And then like either give it a piece of dialogue and say like, how would you say this, or um like have a conversation with it and kind of see how that plays with, make sure that personality works. You can always adjust it as you
Yeah.
go. But I really enjoy that because you can start to see like it's almost like you're communicating with just someone else. It's just that this one happens to be like curated to exactly what you want it to respond to you as. Also, like if you want someone that speaks at a different period in time, and then
Yeah.
you want the GPT to like cite where it's getting this information from, you can ask it to do that. So like it can respond as if it's from like Tudor English times, and then like the word choices, you can be like, okay, well, why did you choose these words? And it will give you information that you can confirm with.
Yeah.
So I like that because it helps get outside of my headspace and like just use a different tool. I mean, like I used to use tarot all the time, which is just randomness. To me, this is kind of like that.
Yeah. I have been using it to like do formatting work too. I'm still working on, I don't know if I've mentioned this on the podcast or not. I'm taking my novel just for fun. Like when I have like a free like 15 minutes, I'll take a segment from my novel, like 1,000 words, and I'll feed it into ChatGPT and I'll be like, put this in screenplay format. Now, it doesn't put it in screenplay format, but what it
Mm-hmm.
does is it pulls out everything but the dialogue. And so it's literally just saving me 30 minutes. And I'm like, great. And then I copy it and then I have to put it in screenplay format. But,
Yeah, yeah.
and I end up editing a lot. Like, it's a sad realization when you put your novel into screenplay format and you're like, I really need to cut the first 4 chapters. Like, this book actually starts on chapter 4. And I was like, damn
Oh
it.
no.
Uh, so, yeah. But yeah, anyway, it's an interesting. I use it. I've been using it that way too this week, just like throwing it into screenplay format. Um, yeah. Any other ways you're using it before we flip into talking about how we're doing things to get away from it?
I don't think so. I mean, yeah, I don't think so. I think I'm mostly just playing around with it, and it's been really helpful with brainstorming. But yeah,
Okay, cool.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, okay, so let's switch to talking about living as an author in an AI world where markets where guys are flooding markets with things. And like how we're keeping our head above water. Because that is that is the question, right? Like the beautiful thing about Seth Godin's quote that like AI is the beautiful thing about Seth Godin's quote that AI is the end of mediocrity is that it excites you about like, okay, now it's time to go create. The
Mm-hmm.
downside of that is that you have to figure out a way to see your to have your creation seen
Yeah.
while everybody is AI crazy. So how are we getting our things seen while everything is AI crazy? What is something you've been doing in your writing that AI cannot help with?
Great question. I think AI struggles to get the exact voice that I like.
Mm,
Even if I've tried to have it draft things and I've given it exactly how I write, it just doesn't do it. It doesn't feel right. It doesn't come out right. Um, and then like there's an aspect that kind of pulls off of that as to not just like how am I my writing how is that reflected through like not using AI, but the personality, like the person behind the words.
mm,
And that's why I've been really focused on local and doing a lot of local things to be seen and to like get involved with, because I feel like that's the direction I want to go in. Um, I think also spaces like Dialogue Doctor, where you have a person behind the community talking and actually being a present being. Uh, and then I'm also on Twitch. So I'm like a face on a camera
mm,
talking to a chat live. And I think that those pieces are really, they're the Twitch one for sure is like a direction I wasn't expecting to go, but it's one that I ended up going because I knew that I needed to do something different to prepare myself.
interesting. Yeah. Yeah, I would say that's interesting. I would like being present is good. I and you and I are both, you're a dialogue doctor editor now, which is super
Hmm.
exciting. Um and you and I both have one-on-one clients, which by the way, you have an open slot still. So if anybody wants
Be my friend.
an amazing coach who is fantastic, uh we've got we've got JP here waiting for another client.
Oh no, keep
Um
keep going with those accolades, please.
yeah,
No.
no, please stop. Please stop. It's too
No,
much.
no, no.
It's too much.
The ninth. You have to say the
The
ninth.
ninth, yeah, sorry, with JP Rindfleisch, the ninth is still has space for one more client. So anyway, uh I've got I think most of my problem solving, things like things that people in this community that we've created, that people in this community have really been helped by, like the dialogue daisy or the idea of anchors, engines, and hazards, or how we think about the five things of a character voice, or the whole concept of like voice modulation to bring emotional resonance, or the slowing down and speeding up in emotional terms, or the difference between exposition and dialogue. All of those concepts have come from me working with clients,
Hmm.
like being in a manuscript with another writer and being like, there's a problem here we need to solve. Like I can
Hmm.
trace every single one of those things back to, there's a problem here we need to solve, and let's solve it together. And then me walking away from that problem and being like, how can I make this work for, like, how can I talk about this with them differently? So that's something I do a lot as an editor and as a writer that I don't think, I mean, there may come a day when AI can do that, but right now, I don't think somebody could go to AI and get that kind of problem solving that they get from us as coaches. And I'm not saying that to be like we're awesome coaches. I'm just saying, like, realistically, um, I don't think
Oh,
AI is solving those kinds of creative problems for
right,
writers yet, to help writers understand the philosophy behind what they're doing in a way that empowers them to fix their stories.
right. I mean, it would be the same aspect of like you can buy a color by numbers. You can create a piece of artwork that at the end you cannot see the lines. It looks pretty, but can
Hmm.
you go to a blank canvas and draw that?
Yeah, yeah.
So, I mean, there may come a time where you can use AI and you can create these great works potentially.
Hmm.
But do you truly know how to craft something on your own using like the tools that you understand at a like granular level? And I don't know if AI can do that, especially at this point when it is more of that underwriter.
Yeah, AI can. I would say what you're saying, just to put it in, just to summarize it in a different way, is that you can create amazing art with AI, but AI can't teach you to use a paintbrush.
100%.
And that's for many of us, I think, as creatives, the joy comes in using the paintbrush.
Hmm.
And it goes to our next question about community in a second, but I will say that's what I'm using AI for. Is, I mean, that's where I think I can't use AI as an editor. It's not helpful to my clients to be like, talk to ChatGPT. Um, what is as a writer, because that wasn't actually the question, how I'm using it as an editor. It's weird, man. Like, I brainstorm a lot with AI and it comes up with a lot of ideas really fast. And this is
Hmm.
just my preference as a creative. I enjoy and prefer and find more resonance with my brainstorming process. Like, I write a nerds the Vala we write together. I write a nerds episode every week, and there's a plot point, and I usually send you something around the weekend. This week I was late. I didn't send it to you till Monday night, I think. But um I usually send you something sometime around Sunday, And most weeks. And then, but right after I send you something, I read the next prompt. I read the next
Mhm.
plot point, and I like puzzling it out. I like being like, okay, I know what has to happen, but how does it happen and how is it funny?
Yeah.
Like, and I like that. And it's not necessarily that AI can't do it. It can definitely do it faster than I do because it takes me like 3 days. But I don't get the same satisfaction of brainstorming with AI than I do of like sitting down. Well, like, because I'll be like doing the dishes and I'll just turn everything off and I'll just sit there and play out scenarios in my head of like how that scene goes. Or I'll, go to bed. A lot of times I'll go to bed at night and intentionally like think about it as I go to bed and try to dream it and wake up. And sometimes those are worthless. But I feel like by the time I sit down to write, I have the scene completely mapped. And that's, it's not that AI can't help me with that, but it can't give me the feeling of resonance and satisfaction I have with the piece that I've written. Does that make sense?
100%. That makes
Yeah.
sense to me.
Yeah.
That like that's your joy. That's what you like to do. I mean, it, it sounds like every time that I hear that, it makes me think of like how craftsmen talk about their crafts or
Mhm.
craftspeople talk about their crafts. Like you can go buy what you're going to make, but
Yeah.
there's a joy to the actual act of doing.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Sorry, I cut you off.
so, no, that I was just going to keep rambling. I'm a rambler, Jeff.
Yeah. That's why we get along so well. Um, that and that you're a nine. Um, so yeah, it's, the reason I'm struggling with my answer is because like the economist in me is like, all right, great. You like you like whittling this piece of wood by hand. I'm going to come over here and crank out 60,000 with this machine and put them in Walmart while you still whittle the one. And part of me is like, yeah, but I like whittling the one, so that's what I'm going to do. Um, and I can't say that like I'm not willing yet to say that brainstorming with AI that we have right now would come, I would be able to find the really quirky and weird solutions I find to our plot problems. Like this week, one of your things was you had a line in our plot problem. The like there's this big problem. The plot, we don't you actually don't write them as problems, but that's how I think about them. You write you wrote like, one of the characters gets captured, they're on their first kind of real mission. And then you have this line in there like, and River discovers that he loves cleaning. So I'm like, how does that happen? Like, how are they on a mission where River discovers that he loves cleaning? And
Sometimes I
so,
write very weird things in there.
oh, it's great. I love it, man. It's fantastic. And so I'm sitting there and I'm like, how does that happen? And it took me like probably 5 days. This is actually why I was late with it because I sat down to write on Saturday morning when I usually write nerds, and I was like, I don't have it yet. Um, and I did ask, I come to think of it, I did ask ChatGPT to help me, and I didn't like any of its solutions. They were fine, but they just weren't. And finally, I was like, oh, they're undercover as janitors in a hospital. That's the only
Yep.
way. That's how this, and the hospital piece like connects some other dots in the prompt. But I was like, yeah, that's how this works. And River's so obsessed with being the best janitor ever. And that's fun. That's funny. So yeah, anyway, that was I mean, maybe that's funny. That's the question, the Seinfeld question. Is this anything? So yeah, but anyway, that's the I like that problem solving aspect of writing that
Yeah.
AI can't help me with. Yeah,
Yeah. At this moment. And I
at this
think too,
moment.
like, uh, I like the concept of thinking about it like a physical craft or creation because like tools constantly advance with time.
Hmm.
And I think that we can't ignore that it exists and we can't ignore that we can partake in that. But there's like certain joy that people have in using kind of like their own tools that they've kind of grown to love with. And so you kind of reach this point where you're like, okay, am I going to do 50-50? Which is, to be honest, probably where I'm going to end up going, because I see a usefulness with AI. Am I not going to use AI at all? Which you're welcome to have that opinion. Or am I going to go all in and use AI? I think that the people that still, I think that learning anything, especially around your trade, is something that's constant. And
Mhm.
I would warrant a caution for people that just dive into AI without having a community of other writers, other editors, and just headfirst into this and just pumping out works. I don't feel like that's learning. I feel like that's just producing.
Yeah, shout out to the Facebook group AI authors. I think that's what they're called. I'm part of them and I can't remember their name. AI for authors, maybe. I'm in awe. I will
Mm-hmm.
spend 10 minutes a day just reading the posts in that group. I don't interact there a lot because I'm just not as smart as they are. But I'm there. There's a lot of authors in there that I would say are 90-10, 90%
Yeah.
AI, 10% craftsmen. And I don't like, I don't, I want to be clear. Like, I don't look down on them in any way. Quite the opposite. I'm
Yeah.
like,
No.
man,
Yeah.
the way you are working that tool and mastering that tool is an art in and of itself. And it's
Yep.
super impressive to
Yep.
watch you like, and I love watching them discuss like, hey, here's what I'm doing with it now. Has anybody tried this thing? Has anybody like, almost like, has anybody tried taking the knife and turning it this way in the thing? And so it's just a like, has anybody tried the knife wasn't working, so I stuck it with a screwdriver. Like, it's just a
I
good
stuck it in a socket.
yeah, but it is that like what you're saying, like, hey, if you're going to be using AI in this way to write with and you're going in all in with it, get in a community where you're talking to other people about it because there's
Yep.
really smart and really passionate authors using this new tool in cool ways. I don't think they're going to like I'm not nervous that they're going to replace me.
Yeah.
Because what I get out of writing, it can't give me. Um, well, at least right now, but I don't think, can it come up with something that's funnier than I can write? Probably, but it can't come up with something that's funny the way that I would write it. Um, because I can't come up with something that's funny. So how's it gonna do it? Anyway, so yeah, but that's just a whole rant on like, there are things that can't give me, but I don't resent people who are finding those things in it because I think it's beautiful
Yeah.
what people are using this new tool for. Yeah. Um, okay. Knowing that markets are being flooded and that the world is changing, what are you doing to keep your ship afloat?
Okay. Are you ready? Um, I decided last year in about November. I went to, I'm sorry, this is a long story, deal with it. I went to a like local author event, discovered we had local authors. Sadly enough, I've been so ingrained in online communities, I forgot like people exist offline. And there's a ton of us. But I joined like the local guild. I joined a couple like writing groups and no one was talking to each other. And I was like, are you kidding me? Like we have these groups that have been established for years and I have no way to talk to other members. And everyone I talked to, there was just like no opportunity to create that. And I was like, okay, well, I'll just make my own. So I did.
Yes.
Uh, and since then, of having this group that we meet on Discord and we meet in person every couple of weeks, and having a local bookstore that is super supportive of us and hosts a bunch of events, we've just seen this rush of like attention. It's authors that are being more engaged and talking to each other on a local level.
Mm,
It's us being at local events and getting in crowds and people coming to watch us like read pieces and do poetry and make fools of ourselves, like when I wore a onesie on stage. um
that was amazing, by the way.
it was a
Fantastic. I
it
wasn't
was
there, but I
wonderful.
saw the pictures and it was fantastic.
It had nothing to do with what I was doing. I just
That's the
wore it
best
because I
part. That's the best
figured, why
part.
not? um but like we've seen this growing interest in the literary arts in this area. Now, the town that I'm in, at Rockford, Illinois, has been really big about visual arts. I think that we've exploded on murals, and I think that we're one of like the we're one of the towns that have just tons of murals.
That's
Uh,
awesome.
it's insane, and I love it. And it's just continuing to grow. Our arts council is amazing. And I just, this is what I kind of realized, like, I've started to do, and something that I just keep digging into is a local level, like being someone that people know, that they know that
Mm,
they're a local author, that uh like they can go to events and see this person. um because it's not just the local authors and creating that community, but it's creating a supportive community, a whole
mhm,
community, not just authors who are interested in you. um I end up getting like it, and this is not like whatever. In terms of like sales and whatnot, our local bookstore, I tend to get a lot more than I do on Amazon for a couple things, and that's kind of nice to see,
mhm.
uh, because it means that there's that local support that's going on. Like I have visibility here, especially when I may not get it in other places. So that would be my suggestion. That's what I've been doing. I think that if one doesn't exist, do it. And yesterday I even launched the submissions for an anthology that we're going to do,
Hey,
because I
nice.
decided we needed one.
That's
Um,
awesome.
and like
Rockford,
I'll be
Rockford
asking
authors only.
Rockford area authors.
Nice.
It is it's intended to be a local piece to represent and reflect all the local authors. Um, and I'll be asking for grants in our local councils um, to kind of help support. And then, like, there's just a ton of support about this whole project. So
I love it.
uh, I don't know if this is the answer, but I think it is an answer, a answer. I
Yeah,
know English. Um, and it's one that I like. It's one that puts a face behind the work that I do. And it makes me have that the communication skills in one sense or another, so that when I go on this, when I go on to Twitch,
yeah.
when I go on to the other places, I have that ability because I've been practicing, I've been working on like who I am as a person and having to like give that elevator pitch really quickly to a lot of
Mhm.
people. So I just recommend everyone do it because it's
I love it.
important.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think it's, I love what you're doing. I think it's really fantastic. And it actually, like, you know this, but it's also inspired me. I had a book sale in March. I'm probably having another one in July, where I'm trying to like get in front of people and do my like, hey, I'm an author thing. Look at the
Mm-hmm.
table. Um,
Look at the table, not at me.
no, look at the table. Look at the book on the table. Yeah. I did a thing in April in which I forced myself to talk into a camera about what I was writing. Um, I mean, I do Dialogue Doctor podcast that becomes a vlog a lot on YouTube, but there's somebody else here with me. It's very
Mm-hmm.
different doing something on Instagram. I did it for a month and I stopped. But it had good impact. Like, because again, it's like putting a face behind what I'm writing and being like, hey, I wrote this and this is what I love about it. I stopped because I'm too freaking long-winded and I have to figure out how to get it down to like less than 60 seconds. Because I'd have a clip that's like, 2.5 minutes, and Instagram is like, no. So, so I had to figure out how to like get myself, I got to work on it a little bit more. So stop. But I
Got
was
to get
having
your
six.
tagline out.
I do. I got to get my tagline out. I got to go Brian Koppelman Vine on it. and be able to just like, he used to do like 6 seconds on screenwriting when Vines was a thing. Brian Koppelman would
Mm-hmm.
get up and be like, say like one thing and then just like turn it off. And I got to get my like 6 seconds on writing stuff to like on like specifically around the fiction I'm writing. So I haven't quite figured out how to do that yet. But I will be coming back to it once I get it. And it is like you're saying, like I'm not doing it locally. I live in a pretty big city, so and there's a very established writers mafia in my city. I didn't say they're the mafia, but they're very nice. They're very nice people. So there's a very established writers guild in my area, but I'm working to kind of online, but making myself known in what I'm doing. Which
Mm-hmm.
just to contrast, like there was a season where the only thing I was doing was running KDP ads. I was running Kindle, like Amazon ads for my books on keywords, which is completely detached from who I am. It's
Yeah.
solely focused on like what Amazon wants to show to other readers. But yeah, so trying to personalize my work a little bit more. Uh,
Yeah.
Anything else we want to say about what we're trying to do?
Uh, I don't know, Jeff. Is there anything?
I don't think so. I think that's
Okay.
it. I think I've beat this horse to
Look at your
death.
local communities.
Yeah, go
See
look
what
at
there is.
and put a face to what you're doing. Make it personal. Uh, it's gonna help you.
If you can.
Yeah, in a world where markets are being flooded and ads aren't gonna necessarily help you anymore, like buying Amazon ads isn't gonna help. Keyword ads isn't gonna help you. Go go try to put a face to it. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, or a hand. You can video your hand talking about it. I don't care what
There
you
was
personalize.
there's what there's one author. I'm just gonna keep talking, Jeff. There's one author who we did a Vela interview for on Serial Fiction Show, and she didn't want to show her face, but she showed these horror masks because she was a horror author.
Oh, nice.
Um, and so she would be wearing these masks whenever, and they were different masks, but trust me, at the time that they were doing that, I haven't followed them or really paid close attention since, but like they were getting a lot of attention. So
Yeah,
like you don't have to have a physical face behind it, but to have a presence
yeah.
doesn't necessarily mean you behind a camera.
And it is a slower build, right? Like, well, I'm gonna argue that Amazon ads have not been the like fast climb build for a long
Mm-mm,
time,
no.
but there was a time where you could find the right keywords, pump money into it, and your book would take off. This is a slower build. You're connecting directly with readers, whether you're doing
Yep.
it locally or whether you're wearing horror masks or whether you're doing poor Instagram videos. Um, I keep telling my
Looking
daughter,
directly into
looking
the
directly
camera.
into the camera. I keep telling my daughter, I need you to record these for me because then people will watch them. Uh, she's very pretty. And I am not pretty, and the internet is a place of pretty people. But yeah, anyway,
Should
that's
get a wig.
that's that'll help. That's what this needs.
That's
This face needs a
it's a
wig.
wig. Yep.
That's what
That's it.
oh, that's what I've been missing the whole time.
Now
Um,
you have your answer.
my whole life, if I only had a wig. Yeah. I think that's a good place to end.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks. I'm gonna hit stop. We can talk a little bit more.
Okay.